You just saw my interview with Senator Kramer of North Dakota. I was just trying to get a simple answer to a question. Is it acceptable for a president, any president, Democrat, Republican, to use his office to ask foreign countries to investigate their domestic political rivals? It doesn't seem to me to be that difficult a question.
I can't figure it out, Jake. Yeah. I don't understand it. Of course it's wrong. And I don't know what they're afraid of. Nobody's asking them, are you for impeachment inquiry? Are you for impeachment? Nobody's asking them. They're just saying to them, look, is this right or wrong? And they won't answer it. And it's a mystery to me. And look, I just went, when I went through re-election, I had expanded Medicaid, and so I was out there telling people this is why I did it. I'm not afraid of things. I'm going to tell people what I'm for. It is true I don't hold office today, but I suspected that this president was going to engage in this kind of behavior. That's why I didn't go to the Republican convention. It's why I didn't vote for him. Yeah. And I don't intend to vote for him again. But we got a long way to go to see where this whole movie is taking.
President Trump has just tweeted that the acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kevin McAleenan, he's out. Kevin McAleenan has done an outstanding job as acting Secretary of Homeland Security. We have worked well together with border crossings being way down. Kevin now, after many years in government, wants to spend more time with his family and go to the private sector. Congratulations, Kevin, on a job well done. I will be announcing the new acting secretary next week. Many wonderful candidates. Well, that list is shorter than it was, 4 times ago, because McAleenan is the 4th person to head the Department of Homeland Security under President Trump, and he's only been there since April. Pamela Brown out front live outside the White House. So, Pamela, the old I'm going to spend more time with my family. What are you learning?
Well, a source is telling my colleague Jay Tapper tonight, Aaron, that Kevin McAleenan turned in his resignation today here at the White House. And a source says that actually White House officials tried to tell him not to resign, but he did so because, according to the source speaking to my colleague Jay Tapper, it was something he wanted to do because he felt like he had done the job he was set out to do. Border crossings are down. He had done a lot of the work that he had hoped to accomplish, and he wants to spend more time with his family. Now, this isn't a total shock. We have been reporting for a while that he was not expected to remain in that job, and he's been acting Homeland Security Secretary since April. He was not expected to ever be given the permanent position. And a source telling my colleague Jake Tapper that also this has been in the works for weeks. In fact, just last week, Aaron, as you'll recall, McAleenan had told the Washington Post in an interview that he felt like he couldn't run his own department because there were other players within the department who had the president's ear. They would go around him, and he felt like he didn't have full control. And that was seen to many as sort of a sign that he wouldn't be in his position much longer. But according to sources tonight, Aaron, McAleenan is leaving on his own terms, turning in that resignation letter to the president, and the president just announcing this on Twitter moments ago.
The White House sent a letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi this week suggesting that President Trump is not going to cooperate with the impeachment inquiry, seemingly thumbing his nose at the very notion that the U.S. government was designed with 3 co-equal branches, specifically to offer checks and balances on each other. When President Obama was in the White House, the Republican-led House of Representatives conducted lots of oversight on the Fast and Furious scandal, on the Benghazi tragedy, and more. We covered it. There were whistleblowers. We covered them. Journalists who covered and citizens who followed Benghazi may find it stunning to see Republican members of Congress trash-talking whistleblowers and inspectors general and trash-talking the oversight responsibilities of the House. Stunning. After all, during the Obama years, in the trenches, pushing to conduct oversight were many of these same House Republicans, such as then Congressman Mike Pompeo from Kansas.
It's deeply part of the American tradition and our Constitution that the Congress perform this oversight.
Yes, it is. And Congressman Pompeo fought the good fight and demanded answers.
We now know that the president didn't turn over all the documents in response to a congressional subpoena.
Sure.
And that's just unacceptable.
It is unacceptable. And one wonders what that congressman would make of the Secretary of State, who has the same name, whose department is ordering State Department officials to ignore congressional subpoenas. Likewise, earlier this year, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham told Donald Trump Jr. to ignore a congressional subpoena. A far cry from Graham's views of oversight back when he was in the House, presiding over the impeachment of President Bill Clinton.
It is not your job to tell us what we need. It is your job to comply with the things we need to provide oversight over you. The day Richard Nixon failed to answer that subpoena is the day that he was subject to impeachment.
Similarly, during the Clinton impeachment, Rudy Giuliani made it very clear where he stood on the matter of avoiding subpoenas.
All of the Watergate litigation resolved the fact that the president is not above the law, is not able to avoid subpoenas.
Now that Giuliani is enmeshed in the Ukraine scandal, however, Giuliani hasn't even made it clear whether or not he is going to honor the congressional subpoena aimed at him. The arguments that Democratic presidents needed to comply with congressional oversight were correct. That's how the system was set up. If you only apply constitutional standards to the other political party and not to your own, then those aren't principles. They're tactics.
Every major national, international, and local news operation that's looked into it has said it's a lie. This is a president who's flat lying, number one. Number two, the statement my son put out today, which I saw when he put it out, I was told there was one being put out. I did not consult with him about what's being put out. In fact, represents the kind of man of integrity he is and what, in fact, he has done and why he stepped down. And I can tell you now, if I am your president, next president, I'm going to build on the squeaky clean, transparent environment that we had in the Obama-Biden White House. And no one in my family or associated with me will be involved in any foreign operation whatsoever, period. End of story. Now let's focus on the problem. The problem is we have a president who violated his oath. He's invited, not just relating to me, on 3 occasions, he's gone to foreign governments and asked for their input in a domestic election. The Russians, the Chinese, and the Ukrainians. And there's not a single shred of evidence to suggest anything I did was wrong. I enforced the policy of the United States government, backed up by the IMF, backed up by the EU, and backed up by all our allies, to clean up the corruption and fire a prosecutor who was corrupt, period. I never, ever, 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 ever had a conversation with my son about anything that I was doing.
We went from a welfare check to a woman being killed by the cops.
Outrage is building over the actions of a Fort Worth, Texas police officer. Saturday morning, just before 2:30 a.m., police were called to the home of 28-year-old Atatiana Jefferson after neighbors noticed her front door was open. Heavily edited body camera video released by Fort Worth police picks up what happens next. After police peer through the front door, they walk the perimeter of the property when suddenly, police say, an officer spots someone standing near a window.
Put your hands up! Show me your hands!
The medical examiner identified the woman who the officer shot as Jefferson. She died at the scene. James Smith says he's the concerned caller who first alerted police.
I feel guilty because had I not called the Fort Worth Police Department, my neighbor would still be alive today.
In a statement, Fort Worth police said their officer drew his weapon and fired the single shot after, quote, perceiving a threat. In addition to the body camera footage, investigators released this still photo showing a firearm inside the house. CNN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson cautions not to jump to any conclusions.
You're going to release the fact that she has a gun in the home as perhaps what? To suggest she had a gun and that we were perhaps fearful for our life? There's no indication where that gun was. There's no indication she had that gun. There's no indication that she should not have had the gun.
CNN has requested the unedited body camera footage. A police spokesperson said nothing additional will be released at this time and that the department, quote, shares the deep concerns of the public and is committed to completing an extremely thorough investigation. Police have not named the officer who joined the department in April of last year. In addition to requesting the unedited body camera video, we have also put in a request for the incident report and dispatch recordings where we could potentially hear the initial call for service that prompted this to begin with late Friday, early Saturday morning. We should note that the police officer involved here, Fred, he has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. We also reached out to the Fort Worth Police Officers Union for comment, and they have not immediately responded.